Hey there. Welcome to episode 56 of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and what makes them do what they do. I'm Pete Townsend, your co-host on Money Never Sleeps, along with Owen Fitzgerald. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialists, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, we highly recommend you have a chat with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. In this episode, we talk to Lizzy Hayashida, co-founder of Change Donations, who enable you to round up your spare change to support the causes you care about most, while also helping charities reach a wider audience. Owen organized this interview, so we knew Lizzy coming into this one, but it was my first time getting to know her. As it turns out, we went to the same university, UMass Amherst, and we ate the same incredible pizza at Antonio's on North Pleasant Street in Amherst, but I had about a 10-year head start on her. So take that slice of tomato and pesto pizza, fold it in half, take a bite, and settle in for episode 56 of Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Here we go again. Welcome to Money Never Sleeps. We're here in WeWork Dublin Landings in the offices of our sponsor, Top Tier Recruitment. I'm Pete Townsend.
And I'm Owen Fitzgerald.
And we're here with Lizzy Hayashida. Did I say that right, Lizzy?
You sure did.
Very good. She's a co-founder and CEO of Change Donation. Welcome to the show, Lizzy.
Thanks for having me.
And are you CEO? Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Awesome. So Lizzy, I know that you and Owen know each other. And we just figured out that we went to the same university, but about 8 years apart. But maybe just give us your backstory and how you ended up at this point in your life.
Yeah, so I started out at UMass Amherst. I thought I was going to be pre-vet. Ended up changing that up a lot. So graduated with a degree in economics, decided to move to New York, worked actually at a financial recruitment headhunting company for about 3 years. Decided I wanted to go back to school, moved back to California where I'm from originally. And I was going to school at night trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Ended up working at a startup. Met a family friend who was a recruiter who introduced me to a founder. And then kind of long story short, I ended up at a retail startup and it was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. So that was
Milo?
That was Milo, yeah. So that was my intro into startup world, which I guess being originally from Palo Alto, you would think that I would have gotten into that a lot sooner.
Like in the air, in the water.
Yeah. But, I was on the East Coast for almost 11 years, so it took me a while to find my way back. But once I got back into it, it was just amazing. And that startup was acquired by eBay. So I ended up getting to work with the eBay executive team and launch the first same-day delivery program for eBay. So working with retail companies to do that. I was doing that for about 4 years and then got recruited to the East Coast, back to New York to work at a fashion startup. Loved that, but then ended up actually getting recruited to California. So back to California, do a lot of moving, and ended up at a fintech startup. So my old manager at eBay asked me to come back. Never thought in a million years I'd ever end up in fintech, but I actually loved it. It was they're giving credit to traditionally underserved customers. And it was just, for me, it was a great way to kind of use technology for the greater good. And so I got into that and it was just fantastic. And then after about 2 years, ended up moving to Dublin to do my MBA. I knew I wanted to start something, but I didn't really know what. And at Trinity is where I met my co-founder, Willie, and he actually had the idea for Change Donations. He'd been thinking about it for a long time. And it was just kind of the perfect meeting of two people. So he had a finance background. I had more of like a product and new product launch startup background. And together we just kind of came up with the idea and we got to spend a whole year in Trinity working on the idea, talking to as many people as possible. I think a lot of startup founders don't really have that chance, but because we were in an academic setting, we really had the chance to go out and talk to as many people as possible and refine the product, get lots of negative feedback at the beginning so we could go back to the drawing board. But at the end of about the first year, we really kind of felt like we had something, and we're such a good team because we're good at totally different things. And so it's just been a great experience.
So that was a project, basically a school project where it started. University project. Yeah,
it started as a school project. Yeah.
That's awesome. We had Kevin Feeney on from Data Chemist back probably about 30 episodes ago now. And that was a 5-year or 7-year thing within Trinity.
Yeah.
And they were able to get corporate funding for the project that they were running. And I'll say data chemists, and I'll leave it at that, because you can probably imagine what they do just by data and chemistry, right?
Yeah.
And that allowed them to operate that within a safe zone, right? Without, as Kevin talked about it, without the hassle of having customers, right? Way back when it was just a intellectually educational, academia-driven project, right? But I'd say going through the MBA program at Trinity meant that, that part of the whole entrepreneurial curriculum. And you were given all of these things about customer discovery, right? But you had a pretty strong basis in that already from a firm, from Shoptique, from Milo, from eBay.
Yeah, I had a good basis in it, but like never from day one. And so being able to go in, actually also being in a whole new country, I think it gave us both the opportunity to really take a step back and be like, we actually need to figure out the market from the ground up versus making any assumptions. And so that was actually, I think, really beneficial to us, is that we couldn't make any every initial assumption we made was probably wrong or just a little bit off. And so we really had to dig into everything. And also, like you said, being in an academic setting, like I think it opened a lot of doors for us, because we could talk to people from more of a discovery academic perspective. And so it was never, we're trying to start a business. It was really like, we're trying to learn, understand what the issues are so we can hopefully solve this problem, but maybe not. Maybe we'll discover there's no issue. And the more we talk to charities and nonprofits, the more we realized that this really was a problem. And then we went from that to then talking to donors, and then understanding that, what the actual issues for donors, and then going back to the drawing board again and figuring out how do you marry those two problems together to create a good solution. So it really gave us the opportunity to do a lot of research.
Just going back a step, because obviously you've mentioned you did a lot of traveling and moving, but obviously that was from one side of the US to the other. It's a big jump then, deciding to come to Dublin of all places to do your MBA. What kind of drove that decision?
Yeah, I guess I've moved a lot in my life. Even growing up, I moved a lot. So I've probably lived in like 12 houses with my parents. So it was never a big issue for me to move in general. I was looking at MBA programs, and I thought I'd either stay close to home and be done with moving, or just try something totally new. And I was looking at different programs, and Trinity is the most entrepreneurial university in Europe. And so that was a big thing for me, is I really wanted to be somewhere that was very tech focused and really entrepreneurial focused. And so Trinity was just kind of like the perfect place.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then when you talked about having that experience of the product management, that side of it, Willie coming at it from the financial side of it. I also read that, what happened in Ireland with the rounding up to the nearest 5 cents that happened. You talked a second ago about how that perfect blend of looking at, two sides of a problem, bringing that all together. Seems like a perfect storm of things happening there with the two of you, with the timing of what was going on there, I think it was like 70% of people stopped dropping coins in cups because they didn't have the smaller coins anymore, right? And then you guys being together at Trinity, is there a bit of serendipity there in all of this that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, we were put on the same team just randomly. And so when we were tasked to find a problem to solve, we could have been with totally different people and who had totally different backgrounds. So there is a bit of serendipity involved. We didn't know about the copper coins disappearing when we first started the project. Okay. So that was a positive kind of benefit. And then the more we dug in, the more we realized it was an issue. So it was actually a South Park episode, which is sort of what was the driver when Willie was pitching the idea. And initially he was like, there's this South Park episode, we have to watch it. Like, this shows what the issue is. Because rounding up is you probably know, it's a pretty normal thing to do in the US, with kind of more savings and investment capabilities behind it. But people will ask you at the register, like, do you want to round up? And so that was what the South Park episode was about. And
I missed that one.
It's a good one. You should watch it.
Okay.
But it becomes sort of a nuisance. We wanted to find a way where we'd make the positive experience, would bring that positive experience back into the donation process instead of making it feel like something you had to do.
Yeah.
And then once we started researching that more is when we came across the copper coins and, I don't carry cash with me ever, so I don't
Yeah.
even have cash to drop in a bucket. So when we did more research and found that 70% of charities have seen a drop in cash donations since that announcement was made, it was just a perfect storm.
And then we've subsequently talked about obviously Revolut coming out and allowing you to round up within firstly allowing you to round up within their app, but also then allowing you to make that donations as part of your roundup, which obviously normalized the kind of behavior then to a degree as well, because it wouldn't have been the idea of rounding up, obviously, as you mentioned, isn't a familiar thing here, and then being able to do it on your card or on your spending is not something that people would be used to.
Yeah, absolutely. That was fantastic for us, actually, because we noticed such a big difference when we talked to both donors and charity partners that they got it right away instead of us having to explain it. So it's actually a blessing for us in disguise.
So from a personal point of view, obviously you talked about all your experience with working in different startups and with eBay and product management and all that. How have you found the change now to being the CEO and being in charge and I suppose leading the company versus coming into some of the startups whereby someone else I suppose was leading it? Have you found that there's different skills that you've been learning over the past year or so?
Yes and no. I think Willie and I are both very much on the same. Like, we make all of our decisions together. We kind of, I'll lean on him for something, he'll lean on me for something. So I think we both kind of co-led everything together, which has been amazing. In terms of different skills, like it's definitely, I've always kind of come in when the initial company was built, but there's a new product that needs to come to the market. So having to go back and not just do the new product, all the fun, figure all that stuff out, but there is a structure behind it, but actually having to put that structure in place has been definitely a different skill to learn. I've needed to learn to be a lot more structured in my communication, I think. So that's probably been the biggest thing, is really being able to communicate the longer term vision instead of the shorter term project vision has been a shift for me.
And just for our listeners, I know that Owen's obviously very familiar with change donation, as I am now after having a look and to prep for today. But can you just talk for a minute about the value proposition and where it's all going?
Yeah, so we are a microdonation platform. So we're giving donors a new way to donate to charity by allowing them to link their cards, round up their purchase to the nearest euro, and then donate those roundups to the charity or nonprofit of their choice. So the biggest things for us was we wanted to become sort of a technology partner for charities. Charities spend so much time, I guess, giving back to the causes that they're supporting. And so they don't have a lot of time or extra funds to be able to do any sort of technology development. And so we wanted to be able to take that burden off of them and be able to develop new things that, in aggregate, if you develop something for a network, you can get a lot more done than having to pay for something individually.
Yeah.
So being able to bring that technology to the charity partners is where we see kind of our biggest value add. And then really learning from them what they need and building those things as they need it. So we've been very, very charity focused. We've been in close contact with all of our initial partners to really understand what's been working, what we need to do better for them, and then building all of that feedback into the next version of our product. So, and then also doing the same with donors. And so on the donor side, being able to give them a way to track the small denomination donations. So if you dropped change in a bucket, you didn't really actually realize the impact you were having. So being able to show you how much that small change actually adds up has been a really big benefit for the donors. And then giving them an easy way to actually make that donation. So we found that typically donors were giving either, the small change donations, which they're going away, or they were giving on a one-off basis or monthly basis. And if your financial circumstances change and you were giving monthly, you would tend to just cancel that direct debit altogether. And the likelihood of going back is very low. Because it's so hard to set up, it's so hard to, cancel if you need to cancel it. So we wanted to actually bring that flexibility back in. So kind of just with a swipe of, or push the button, you can say, turn this on, actually now turn it back on, or turn it off, now turn it back on. So that you can really support that cause when you can, but if you can't, then we understand that too. So we wanted to bring that flexibility really back to the donor.
Yeah, what I really like about it is, and what struck me immediately, is that having your donations based upon your own spending is going to be based on your own income, right? So it's right-sized for you.
Yep.
Right. And that, yes, the difference between rounding up 90 cents versus rounding up 10 cents, well, that can be somewhat random, right? But it all works out over the course of a month, right? So that what you end up giving is probably more aligned to your spending, which probably makes you feel a bit better about it to begin with, right? So it works. But the best thing is that I, as a donor, I'm not paying for it, right? I'm not paying for the service of doing that, and that, you are actually helping to reduce the costs of the charities themselves, who's receiving the donation.
Yeah, and on top of that, in Ireland, actually, if you donate €250 or more, the charity can claim back the tax.
Yeah.
And so it's actually a huge benefit to the charity because before, you're dropping your change in the bucket, it could add up to $250 over time, or on top, like with your one-off donation, maybe that all adds up together. And now they can actually track that, and so and let you know you're actually only €5 away. So it's a huge add to the charity as well at the end of the year.
It allows for better engagement, I'd assume, with the donors as well, because obviously there's no continuous engagement with someone putting money in the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of forget who do you even donate to sometimes. And so this really lets you have that personal connection with the charity.
So you're about a year in now at this stage?
Oh gosh, we're about 2 years in.
2 years in.
Yeah.
You went through the Blackstone Launchbox Accelerator program.
We did, yep.
Yep. And 2 years in is a good time frame. Hard decision so far? Anything come to mind where you guys have really had to hem and haw over something?
No, we've had to hem and haw over a lot of product decisions for sure, but I think we both sort of knew after we worked on it for the first semester with a team internally within Trinity, and then after that we kind of knew there were initially 3 of us actually, and we all 3 knew this is what we wanted to be doing.
Okay.
So it was really more about figuring out how to make it work and how to make it give back the most, or how to make it the most beneficial for our partners. I suppose then we got into Launchbox, and that was a huge benefit. And I guess at the end of that, we were kind of like, are people going to like this or not? Because we had to really work on our story and like making people understand what it is. As Owen was saying earlier, like the education piece that really was heavy on us. So at the end of Launchbox, I think we came out of demo day and actually won demo day. And for us, that was sort of the time where we're like, okay, we're full steam ahead. Like, yeah, this is going to work. We're going to make this work. So
did you go into demo day thinking, yeah, we're going to win?
No. Not at all. I think when they announced the winners, like we got off stage and we're like, okay, that was pretty good.
Well,
yeah, like we got our story across, like we pitched it the way we practiced, like that was good. But then when they were making the announcements, we're kind of all standing next to each other. We're like, yeah, okay, we're definitely not winning. And they announced us, and all of us just like, I wish someone had a picture of our faces. I think we're all kind of just so shocked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that. I think that was sort of our turning point where we're like, this is a business. Like we can do this.
Just on that perfect pitch, because it's what 2 or 3 minutes you get?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Yeah. And I've seen some founders do really well. I've seen some founders flop. Anything that you can remember about that day and about what you did that worked incredibly well?
Oh God. I think it was just practice because
over-prepare.
Yeah, like the first pitch we ever did, I was the first one that had to speak, and I didn't speak at all. Like I just stood on stage and was doing headlights, didn't talk at all. And so I learned from that and way over-prepared. And then probably about 10 minutes before, I just stopped preparing and I like put headphones in. I didn't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. Yeah, because it took me a really long time to be able to speak in public. Like I would have not, if someone asked me to talk at a conference like 2 years ago, I would have just said, no, thank you. I'd really rather not be on stage. So it took me a long time to kind of get over the stage fright. And it was we practiced on the actual stage. Like we'd go after work into the dark auditorium, like turn on the lights on ourselves and practice on stage so we were used to the environment, and it took a lot of preparation.
Oh yeah. The headphones help, and you just take that away, last 10 minutes, get those going. I've never done it myself, but I've seen others do it, that then go on stage and just kill the crowd. And when you're going out to pitch to a bunch of people who actually are excited to be there, it's awesome. When you're going out to pitch to a bunch of people that are sitting there in suits on their iPhones, right? That's just no fun. You're not going to get anybody hyped up. My pal Simon Taylor from 11FS, shout out to Simon. I saw him do this at the convention center before he went on stage in front of about 500 people, 475 of whom didn't want to be there.
Oh,
right?
no, yeah.
And he's just all hyped out, doing his thing, rocking the room, and they're just like nothing. You couldn't get anything from that poor guy. But, so headphones sometimes don't work.
Yeah.
But no, that's it. And what I find is that if you do that and you get yourself separated just for a few minutes, you open your mouth and it's just like, how did that just come out? And it's hopefully generally good stuff. During this whole period, over the last couple of years, you mentioned that winning that demo day, right? Great validation. Any other validations along the way where it was like, we've really got something here that were meaningful to you?
Yeah, I think after that, we were accepted into New Frontiers Phase 1. So that was really helpful, and that helped us kind of refine our business ideas and stuff. And then we were accepted into the Responsible Innovation Summit, and we pitched for the best new business idea, and we won that as well. So that was kind of like, okay, now we have an outside of Trinity body
Outside
that's actually believing in us. So that was really great. And then I guess we sort of just kept on with the competition. So we were in Futurescope in March, and then we ended up winning that. And so we've just been we got into Google Adaptive Startup, we got into the Ireland Funds Business Plan competition. So we've just kind of been applying to everything. And then the more we got to get into, the more confidence you build, and the more you can, go forward with newfound confidence. And so I think it's just everything builds on each other.
How are you defining success, I suppose? And the reason I ask is we had Ollie Walsh on recently from Pipit, and through the hard times of building the business, it's a socially responsible business. It's social impact. That's the driver. So they always fall back on that in terms of getting over the bad days. Is that success, I suppose, that focus always in the back of your mind on it?
For sure. The more we talk to our partners, the more successful we feel, and especially smaller partners that maybe wouldn't have had the reach without kind of us being able to put marketing behind it, or create creative. Like I think my first love is really actually doing things creative, and so being able to sit down with a partner and say, what can we make for you that would make your marketing more successful, where you can reach more donors? Like how do we do that with you? So that's really when we see, honestly, every time we see a new donor come on and sign up with one of our partners, that is just the coolest feeling. Especially because we'll talk to our partners and be like, did you already have that donor? And if it's a totally new donor, then that's a great feeling. We found someone, we connected them with a new charity that they may have not known about before. So that I think is one of the best feelings.
Because obviously it's a commercial business. There are commercial milestones, but obviously does that help? I suppose does that help get through the kind of bad days or the less successful days, just having that always in the background, knowing that, the next donor that you bring on you're actually making a difference? Definitely.
And in the back of our minds, we're always trying to kind of think of how are we going to show impact, not just of us as a company, but how do we show impact back to the donor on their impact they had on causes they support? And so the more that we're able to do that, and something we're working hard on figuring out now, that is, I think, will be the biggest thing for us when we kind of crack that and are able to say, like, look, Lizzy, this is what you were able to do to help this cause that you actually really care about, and to be able to kind of give that positive feeling back to the donor, like that is really what we're...
Because I think in that space, and I know it, obviously I work with AidTech, and we had Niall from AidTech on before, and it's that feeling that people want to see their money, they want to know what their money was used for, because there's been years of, I suppose, scandals or situations where people don't know what their donation went for, or that half of it, if I donated online, went to fees and charges, and only the charity only gets half of what I've paid. If I'm donating, I want to actually see that it's done some good. So that'll probably be a key piece of the kind of next step, is being able to show to the donors, because you would assume that that'll build then repeat kind of donors.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're working on building out kind of initial functionality built out, but of allowing a charity to fundraise for a specific project. So you can actually then donate to a specific project that's happening within the charity. So you can really see that you're donating to that specific thing, which will be really cool. So hopefully we'll have that soon.
And do you get the sense then that, like, donors, I suppose, do they donate to a charity or a particular cause? Because obviously I can donate to Troker, or I can donate to a very specific issue.
Yeah, in general, donors seem to donate to to a specific charity. But that being said, we've actually seen that a lot of donors are donating to multiple charities. We've built out functionalities you can split your donation to one or several causes. Because we've seen the average donor is giving to about 4.5 charities a year. And so we wanted to make sure that that was really flexible too. So it's not just necessarily you have one cause, but you have a couple. So there's usually a couple things that are really important to different people.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because when I think about my experience with charities where they come knocking on the door, especially, and where you'd rather just hand them over, €10 in paper. I don't have that anymore. But even when I did have, currency in my wallet, by choice, that they couldn't take it, right? And that I would need to give them my bank details. And just thinking about this whole proposition today, I'm a lot more comfortable giving you my bank details on your app because I do that so many times over and over again to pay for things than I would giving it to someone standing at my door with a paper form with a badge that's a representative of the charity. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That I'm just more comfortable giving my financial details to an app. Right? Was that psychology part of all of this? Did that ever come into your thinking that this is actually going to be easier?
It did. We did think it was going to be easier. It's not, I think, it's not as easy as we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Because myself and my co-founder Willie are both American originally, or still are American. We're both originally from the U.S. But we're used to giving that information out to a lot of different things. You link your bank account for personal financial tools all the time.
Yep.
It's been because of the education piece in Ireland, it's been a harder thing for people to kind of understand.
Okay.
So that has been something that we've had to do a lot of education around, but people are starting to get it, so that's been great. But it has been harder than we expected it to be, actually.
Okay. Anything so far that, I know it's still early days, but things you wish you might have done differently?
Actually, I think we sort of started out and our initial MVP build included a lot of things that were not that important because you think of the perfect product and then you're like, oh, we just need to do this one more thing before we can release it, or just one more thing before we can release it. So I think we could have probably pushed out our MVP and started testing a few months earlier than we did, not worrying about perfecting it so much, because once it was out there, we had to change things anyway. And so we may as well have gotten it out sooner. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And that's a hard thing for me personally still, even, is being able to let something go without knowing that you have everything included that you want it to be there. Because I think as a founder, you always see the things that you are missing, but realizing that no one else knows they're missing.
Oh yeah,
it's a hard one.
A wise person once said, "If you wait until your product is bug-free before you ship it, you've waited too long."
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I really like thinking about your personality traits. We get a lot of the same answers on Money Never Sleeps when we ask this question in terms of what do you think has led you to do this, but what do you think has led to your success in terms of your own personality traits? Let's see if she gives one of the similar answers.
Yeah. I'd say for me, probably the thing that attracts me to startups and why I love what we're doing so much is I love figuring out new problems. So I like being in depends on the day, I suppose, but you see that startup graph where it's you think it's going to be this straight, hockey stick up, and it's really this crazy messy mess.
Yeah.
And I love the mess. So I love figuring out how do you get from this crazy, disorganized, what do we do next to the next point, and then kind of celebrating that for a second and then going back into the next kind of crazy mess. So that's actually my favorite part of building any product or being in any company is the uncertainty.
That's interesting. This is a new one, and it's got me thinking about this graph that I saw that somebody showed me yesterday, and we can't draw it out for the listeners, obviously, because it's audio only. But that starting off, if it were a hockey stick, or even a just straight line, that there's this kind of descent into chaos, right, that you're talking about that happens. But you're there at the beginning of the line, right? At this time. In the past, you hadn't been.
Yeah.
So starting off where it is somewhat clean and you're moving along, and then you've got this descent into chaos. That actual, that's within your control. Is it? Is that descent into chaos within your control? Do you let it happen so that because you know you got to get out of it and you will get out of it? And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm saying that, if for any founder, there is a descent into chaos. But how do you control the ride into it, or do you just let it go?
I think it's more of I know it's going to happen, and I'm not concerned about that. So for me, I don't need to have like some people are very like to have the stability of, you have a stable job and you have a stable paycheck, and obviously that is not how startups work. And I think I don't mind the uncertainty. I like that we can control where the product goes, and sometimes there is uncertainty about what's the next build, or are we going to be able to pay our rent, or what's happening next. But I think I know that we are a really strong team, and we'll figure out our way out, and I love being able to figure that out. I love strategically thinking about what is the next move we're going to make, and how is that going to affect the company, not just tomorrow but in next year. So how do we actually plan that? And then I don't mind that we don't get everything right, because I know we're not going to get everything right. I like then going back to the drawing board and thinking about all the craziness again, and then coming out with a new solution. So I think sometimes the chaos actually leads to something positive, and as long as I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which some days easier than others. But I think my personality is such that I can handle that.
Do you think, given when you talked about kind of growing up and moving and all that, do you think actually some of that uncertainty, if you want to call it that, has actually helped because you're just used to things maybe changing quickly, or being open to, like you said, you were thinking about moving, so you moved to Ireland. So, but it means that your mindset, it means that you're always prepared for, look, things might change. I'm okay with that, and I'll move on from it. Yeah,
that probably is a big part of kind of what built my psyche, my personality. And then I think for me also, I remember one point back in my eBay days, my managers, we were talking about a product and what we were going to be working on, and he was like, okay, we're all gonna have all these ideas, but at a certain point, we're gonna pick one and we're all gonna get behind it. And so just understanding that you have all that craziness in the brainstorming, but then you have to pick something and then go for it, and then you can revisit and do the craziness again, but you do have to have that kind of momentum forward. I think that probably my growing up pushed me that way, but then I think my experience within my working life and having great mentors kind of taught me that, just aligning and getting out of chaos, learning how to do that.
And who do you lean on then? You mentioned great mentors. Who do you lean on, aside from, you obviously talked about the kind of good balance that you and Willie have as founders, but who else do you lean on for, I suppose, advice or support or getting you through those good or bad days?
He's probably Willie's definitely my biggest support and everything for the company. It's been, I think we tend to have good days and bad days and opposite days, which has been great. Outside of that, I think I have a great support system of friends from back in California. My family is fantastic. I have a great support system now in Ireland, which I think we're really lucky that we were able to build that so quickly. So I think just having I have different people that I lean on for different, aspects of whether it's business or whether it's just getting through personal stuff. So I think just knowing who to call is, I don't know, that was a terrible answer.
I know what you mean, because actually I think I know myself, and even often given what you're trying to do, there's so much to it, so much uncertainty to it. Actually, different people will play different roles. It's never going to be one person, especially in the environment you're in. It's never going to be one person with all the answers. Someone might be able to help you from a go-to-market point of view, but that person can't help you with just the challenges of firing somebody. It's a completely different kind of mindset or whatever. So it does help, I think, having people with a kind of diverse range of kind of areas that they're good at being there to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think about where you'd like to see this all go, you're looking at, I'd expect a funding round. Mm-hmm. I just can't help but look at Crunchbase, right? And can't help but look at your career history and see a firm on their Series F and understand the social impact that a firm have had and understand the social impact that you're having and striving to have a lot more of, and think about the investors in a firm and think about the similarities and so on and so on and so on. Any of that clicked inside your mind yet in terms of the type of investors that you guys are focusing on for getting things starting to scale?
Yeah, that's definitely obviously run through our minds. We are trying to not scale slowly, but we're trying to start slowly in terms of investment. We'd like to, keep as much of the company as we can, especially in the early days. So we've been just basically bootstrapping everything. We have some great Irish investors. We have some great U.S. investors that should be coming on board in the next couple weeks. So that will be great. But yeah, we'll probably revisit that.
But even from even obviously given that both yourself and Willie are from the US and there's a large opportunity there, do you see that it'll eventually be going back to the US, or is Ireland now your home away from home for the next few years?
Yeah, Ireland's definitely our home away from home in terms of where we want to build out the company, where the development's going to stay. In terms of where the market is, the U.S. market is just astronomically bigger. So our goal is to get into the U.S. Early next year. So we've been working towards that. We have some pilots lined up, so we should be on track for that in early 2020. But yeah, our home in terms of development and everything else will be Ireland for the foreseeable future.
And do you think will it remain your own home, or will there be that pull back to the US?
We'll see. I really like it here, so I'm not in a rush to go back. But yeah, we'll see. You never know.
Burning question for me, given that you're a grad of UMass Amherst, and I talked to someone recently who was also a grad of UMass Amherst, and I said, geez, do you miss Antonio's?
Oh my God, for sure.
Yeah, Antonio's Pizza. This guy had never heard of it.
Are you kidding?
Early 90s, it was there. I know it was there. I validated this. He was such a bookworm. He just never went uptown. Antonio's, for all of our listeners, is the most wonderful pizza joint. Where you walk in and you have all these pizzas lined up for you to pick from, all these different toppings, and you pick a slice, they throw it in the oven for you, and like 3 minutes later, you got this little bundle of glory.
Everything students could want.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it was so cheap. It was like, when I was there in the 90s, it was like $2.50 a slice or something.
I don't think it went up much more than that, if any. And you could get like pizza with chips on it, or potatoes, or like anything you could possibly think of. It was
taco
so
pizza.
Good. Yeah.
There was the potato and bacon. There was the tomato and pesto, chicken and bacon, blue cheese and chicken.
Yeah.
It was good.
You were regular.
It was good.
Ate there a lot.
Yeah, no, I stopped eating cheese since then, so I go back in there, and I don't think they'll make me a pizza without cheese in there. It's sacrilegious.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
No. Anyway.
Listen, obviously you guys could definitely talk for a few more hours on all things UMass related. We usually like to wrap up by asking, is there anything people wouldn't expect to know about you? Myself and Pete have shared a number of things over
we have
the
shared
course.
quite a bit. Owen and I did a roundtable yesterday for Enterprise Ireland. We asked all 12 people at the end of the session what they, we asked them that question, and we got around to me, and I said, INAC Clat's draw cap, which is I can talk backwards. I just developed this skill when I was a child growing up in Massachusetts with poorly ventilated bedroom because there was just no air conditioning back then, and the humid summers, and I'd lie awake at night and I'd try to put myself to sleep by looking at the bookcase at the end of my bed, and first I'd read all the titles of the books frontwards, and then if I wasn't asleep yet, I'd go and I'd read them backwards. So I figured out how to see words in my head and reverse the letters around and say them, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I should be a code breaker or something like that somewhere. But yeah, no, little fun thing.
But what was interesting anyway, because they were like all corporates that we were having a discussion with, and it was a lot of it was a US buyer visit, so there were US companies there, and obviously they wouldn't be asked these typical sort of things. But as well as that was funny because one of the interesting ones that came up was obviously the Irish guy in the room working for a US corporate who had blagged his way into a summer job in the Kennedy compound, and he used to get to go for dinners on Sundays with the Kennedys, and it's just funny that it was the Irish guy who managed to blag his way into this.
Another guy who played golf with Bill Clinton, just totally randomly.
So anyway, there's some examples if you have Something that we wouldn't expect to know about you.
Yeah, I don't have any famous people stories. I was asking a bunch of people, what do I say if they if I'd ask me something. And my boyfriend was like, "Oh, I'll tell them you're the newest like tip hurling whatever
Really?
fan."
Really?
Oh, my family's all from Tip. We're
Are they really?
big Tip
No
hurling
way.
fans. My family's all from Thurles, or just outside of Thurles, Holy Cross. My grandmother's from there. My dad's from there. Massive Tip hurling fans.
Oh, cool.
I don't get to go as much anymore, but I was glued to the match on Sunday.
Yeah, I went to the match on Sunday.
Oh.
Actually there. That was
Jealous.
so cool. Yeah, so that was what I was told to say.
Awesome. But it's true.
There you go.
That is true.
Okay.
Yeah, but any sport. Like that's a fun fact. I now own my first ever jersey that I've ever owned for any sport, and it is a tip hurling jersey.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Couldn't have picked a better
So
one.
coming to Ireland to get you. Not like hurling's huge in the US or anything.
I never heard of it before I moved here.
Well, listen, thank you very much for joining us and sharing all that information.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Lizzy. Great to have you.
Cool.
Money never sleeps, pal.
That wraps it up, folks. Thanks to Lizzy for opening up her mind to help us figure out why she does what she does. Contacts for Lizzy are in the show notes for this episode on moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting or retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, get in touch with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. If you want to get involved with the show, drop us a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie or DM us on Twitter at MNSShow. We're on all the major podcast platforms, and remember, Money Never Sleeps is spelled as all one word. As for me, I increase the odds of startup success. DM me on Twitter at PTownsendNV if you want to know more, and you can follow Owen on Twitter at OwenFitzgerald9. Finally, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. Till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!